What makes a house become haunted? Is it heartbreak, tragedy, or something more sinister? For the Lemp Mansion in St. Louis, Missouri, the answer to this question might well be all of the above. You see, this family saw so much tragedy that 4 of them ended their own lives, and when the last family member died, his final instructions were for all possessions to be destroyed so that their curse would end with them. Johann Adam Lemp had big dreams when he moved to St. Louis from Germany in 1838. He opened up a small grocery store selling the usual household items, but also offered homemade beer that was a light golden lager, something different than what was available at that time. In a short space of time, he gave up the grocery business, purchasing a small brewery, selling his lager to local pubs. After becoming one of the most successful lagers in the city and winning an award in 1858, he died a millionaire on August 25th, 1862, passing on his legacy to his son William. William had big plans, and before long, a large expansion of the business took place. He purchased a 5-block area around the storage house on Cherokee, above the caves that the company used for storage, and continued to expand over the next few years as product demand increased. By 1876, William had purchased a house from his father-in-law, Jacob Fikert, that was a short distance from the Lemp Brewery. He began to expand the home to include a tunnel from the basement that went through to the caves. The caves were also converted to include a theatre, a bowling alley and swimming pool that had hot water piped in from the brewery boiling house. After gaining national recognition with the popular Falstaff beer, it seemed like William was unstoppable. But heartbreak came about like a sledgehammer when William's favourite son and heir, called Frederick, died in 1901 at the age of 28 from heart failure. Completely grief-stricken, William began to withdraw, acting nervous and unsettled. Then the final blow came on January 1st, 1904, when his best friend also died, and the pain became unbearable. On the morning of February 13th, 1904, William mentioned that he felt sick and didn't feel like eating his breakfast that day. Waiting until his wife had left to run errands and the servants were busy with their daily chores, he walked upstairs to his bedroom. At 9:30 a.m, he shot himself in the head with a .38 caliber Smith & Wesson. His son, William Jr., heard the sound and ran up the stairs, kicking the bedroom door in, only to discover the lifeless body of his father on the floor with the gun still grasped in his right hand. With his newfound power and fortune, William Jr. and his wife Lillian started to live the high life. During the day, he would commit his time to running the family business, but when the evening came around, he was known for throwing lavish parties in the caves below the mansion, hiring prostitutes for him and his friends to enjoy. But his behaviour caught up to him. It's not known whether it was a mistress, one of his servants, or a prostitute, but he managed to impregnate a woman who gave birth to a baby boy, calling him Zeke. The young baby was born with Down syndrome, and William Jr., being the vain man he was, decided to hide the baby away for fears others would see his huge embarrassment. From the moment he was born until the time he died, the young boy was locked away in the attic and cruelly given the nickname Monkey-Faced Boy. There is no official documentation to back up the birth of the child, but considering the shame that William Jr. felt, it might well be that he was never officially registered. But when St. Louis historian Joe Gibbons interviewed a former nanny and chauffeur of the Lemp family, they both verified that the boy did exist. How horrible that this young, innocent child had to go through life hidden away like a dirty secret, never knowing real love or affection. With the loss of his mother in 1906 to cancer and a growing indifference towards his wife, William Jr. filed for divorce in 1908. The family scandal was plastered all over the front pages of the local newspapers, with reports of violence, cruelty, affairs and drunkenness. The divorce seemed to be the turning point for William Jr.'s luck. He kept on spending money like it would never run out, including building himself a country home on the Merrimack River and remarrying for a second time to Ellie Lindbergh. But with growing competition from other brewing companies and not updating the company's equipment, the business started to fall apart. By the time that Prohibition came along, there seemed no point in trying to keep the company up and running. It was decided that they would liquidate the assets, with the Falstaff logo going to brewer Joseph Grisdiek for $25,000 in 1922, and the International Shoe Company purchasing the buildings for $588,500, a fraction of its value in the years before, when it was estimated at around $7 million. And while all this was going on, his sister Elsa Lemp Wright shot herself due to depression over the state of her marriage. At the time, William Jr. was quoted as saying, "That's the Lemp family for you," words that later came back to haunt him. You see, with losing the company and the lifestyle he'd become accustomed to, William Jr. slipped into a deep depression. Just like his father, he became nervous and erratic, complained of feeling unwell and staying out of the public eye. Finally, on December 29, 1922, he shot himself in the heart with a .38 caliber revolver in the same building where his father had ended his own life 18 years earlier. William Jr.'s son, William Lemp III, tried to get the business back on track after Prohibition, but it failed, and it seems the stress of it ended up killing him too at the age of 42 from a heart attack in 1943. William Jr.'s brothers, Charles and Edwin, had no interest whatsoever in building the company back up. When their nephew died, Charles decided to move back to Lemp Mansion, where he lived with 2 servants and the young, illegitimate son of his brother. But over time, he struggled with OCD and would wear gloves due to his overwhelming fear of germs, washing his hands constantly throughout the day. It was during this period that the young boy died and was buried on the Lemp cemetery plot with a small, flat marker that simply stated Lemp. Truly sad ending to a life that had no chance from the start. Now, feeling alone, Charles decided that he'd had enough. At 8 a.m. on May 10, 1949, a servant named Alfred Bittner came to collect the breakfast tray from outside Charles's bedroom and was alarmed to find it had not been touched. Upon opening the door, he discovered Charles on the floor, still holding a .38 caliber Army Colt revolver in his hand. It was later discovered that he'd also killed his beloved dog, as it appeared he didn't want the dog to be without him. Out of all the suicides of the Lemp family, Charles was the only one who left a suicide note. It simply stated, "In case I am found dead, blame it on no one but me." That left only one family member, Edwin. Now, he had absolutely no interest in the mansion and sold it, with the property being turned into a boarding house. But like many things at that time, lack of money and prospects led the building to start to deteriorate, and the whispers of hauntings began. Residents complained about hearing ghostly knockings on the doors and walls, and the sound of footsteps throughout the house, leading many to run in fear. It seems the deceased Lemp family were distraught over what had happened to their legacy. But even in 1975, when the mansion was purchased by Dick Pointer and turned into the restaurant and inn that it is today, workers complained about their experiences inside. You see, they constantly felt like they were being watched. Tools would vanish and reappear somewhere completely unexpected. And that's not to mention the ghostly voices and apparitions. It got so bad, some workers just dropped their tools and refused to set foot back inside the property. There are said to be a few areas of the mansion that scream haunted. So let's start with the attic space. In here, people passing in the street have regularly witnessed the ghostly face of the young boy Zeke staring out of the window, which is no surprise considering his whole life was spent up there. Visitors have left toys for him, drawing a circle around where they were placed, only to return the very next day and discover them in a completely different location. One guest at the Lemp Mansion, who claims to have stayed with his wife there over 50 times, stated that the attic was used for seances and that he'd personally heard ballroom music, voices, and the sound of gunshots echoing through the hallways, which is interesting, as another area that has witnessed paranormal activity is the staircase. It seems that the death of William Sr. is being replayed again and again, as William Jr. is heard running up the stairs and kicking in the bedroom door. Could this be the location where the creepy gunshots are heard? One guest who stayed in the bedroom stated they woke up in the night to hear someone pacing the room and then walking around the bed again and again. As if that wasn't bad enough, the ghost then suddenly leaned over the woman, making a terrible moaning sound that left her terrified. Was this William Sr. preparing himself for his final act? While the restaurant might be successful today, staff members often report strange occurrences while going about their day. You see, glasses will often lift up from the bar by invisible hands and then be thrown across the room. Doors will lock and unlock on their own, and the piano will play when no one is close to it. As if that isn't eerie enough, ghostly apparitions will appear in front of staff and just suddenly vanish. And don't get me started on the women's bathroom. This area once belonged to William Jr., and plenty of ladies have reported going about their business in this area, only to discover a ghostly man peering at them over the stall, watching them. One woman was so convinced by what she saw, she went back to the bar where her male friends were drinking and shouted at them, "I hope you got an eyeful." The shocked men pleaded with her that they were innocent and hadn't moved from their seats, which was backed up by the bartender. It's hardly a surprise to know that this mischievous, pervy ghost is thought to be William Jr. So do you think the family was cursed, with so many Lemp family members killing themselves? It certainly does seem a valid question. The last family member, Edwin, refused to have anything to do with the mansion, and when he died in 1970 at the age of 90, his last wishes were that all paintings, as well as artefacts, documentation, etc., be destroyed. And his butler did just that, setting it all ablaze in a huge bonfire. Was Edwin afraid that the Lemp family belongings would pass on the misfortunes of his family? Did he believe they were cursed? Whatever the case, this family certainly lived in wealth and power, but the cost was exceptionally high, and after Edwin's death, no family remained. What are your thoughts on this, dissectors? Curse or something else? Let me know in the comments below. And until next time, stay safe out there.